Hello, Jesus sisters. Due to technical issues, we unpublished our original episode 10. We believe those tech issues are resolved now and are republishing the episode today. So here's episode 10, The Importance of Grieving Loss.
We've all experienced some type of loss or losses in our lives. How do these losses currently impact us in our relationships? Have we grieved those losses? Do we even know how to grieve? In this episode, we speak with Darlene Rempel, a grief recovery specialist and co-founder of Stronger Life Connections. Let's listen to Darlene's answers to these questions on dealing with grief.
Welcome to the Jesus People Sisterhood podcast, a place where Christian single women age 50 plus connect. I am your host, Janine Jordan, a Christian confidence coach and leadership mentor in Alberta, Canada.
And I'm your co-host, Ellie McCormick, a Christian longevity coach and mentor in the USA. Being single women over 50, we know what it's like to feel overlooked, to have unrealized dreams, to experience the challenges of singlehood, and to be concerned about what our future will look like. We couldn't find anything online for single Christian women over 50, so we created Jesus People Sisterhood just for you, a place where sisters encourage and empower one another through the last third of life, because you are a treasure trove of wisdom and of exceedingly great value. This is an authentic community, a supportive family, with other women on the same journey where Jesus is the center of it all. Here you will find real talk, real community, and real sisters.
Join us as we discuss building relationships, whole health, and growing spiritually. We'll review helpful books and articles, chat with guest speakers, share success stories, and have some laughs along the way. So grab your favorite beverage and we'll get started.
Hello and welcome to the Jesus People Sisterhood podcast. In this episode, we are interviewing Darlene Rempel. She helps clients navigate their grief through guided action steps that bring healing and helps them find strength in vulnerability. Darlene also offers her own equine-assisted learning program, where she has a unique approach using horses as partners in the healing process. Darlene's contact information and more can be found in today's show notes.
Hi, Darlene. We're so glad to have you on the show today. We just want to jump right in, and can we start with you telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you for having me on the show, on the podcast, Janine and Ellie. I'm so glad to be here. I think my bio was read, so I'll just go into some personal, I guess, who I am. I like to call myself mature because, you know, the other option is not always flattering, but I like to say I'm a mature Christian woman. I have 2 kids and 2 grandkids, and I just love them to pieces. My other love is horses, and I have 3 horses that I can that are like my kids. My husband says I spend more time with them than I do with him and care about them more. So but they take a lot of work. But I love my kids and my horses, and I love what God, right? I am just an ordinary woman who loves God and who loves life. I think as we mature, I think God has a purpose for us. And I just find that I love that God's integrated not just my love of horses and my love of my grandkids into my work, which is helping people just understand grief and how they can work through grief so they can live their best lives.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for that, Darlene. And I'm so pleased to be able to tell you that Darlene and I have been friends for many years, and it's just been a blessing in my life. So we're very glad you're here, and thanks for sharing that.
So, Darlene, tell us, what is grief?
So we like to say grief is a normal and natural reaction to loss. Our other definition is the conflicting feelings caused by an end of or change of a familiar pattern or behavior. So loss is really normal. It's a natural reaction. Sometimes we think loss is something abnormal or that we are going through something strange, but it actually is normal and natural. And it's caused by, it also has that conflicting feeling whenever there's a loss or a change in pattern or behavior. So this isn't just when there's a death. It's whenever your life has a change in behavior or patterns that we actually grieve losses.
Can you tell us, are there stages of grief?
We like to say it's more responses to grief. We really believe that grief is very unique and individual, and grief is tied to relationships. And we know that every relationship is unique. So we'll grieve, everybody will grieve different and uniquely according to their relationship. What we do know is there's common responses to grief. And common responses to grief that most people feel are that reduced concentration. So it's kind of like that shocked, sometimes we think it's denial when we just can't concentrate on anything, but it's that reduced concentration kind of being in the fog. There's also a sense of numbness, right? We kind of stop feeling, we just can't take it all in. So we have that sense of numbness, and those things can last different amounts of time. The other thing we know is that there's disrupted sleep and eating patterns. So people who are in grief, right? Sometimes they stop eating, sometimes they keep eating too much, and sleep is a really big thing when we're going through loss because we either can't sleep or we sleep too much or a combination. And the last common response is just that roller coaster of emotional energy. So just those conflicting feelings that are arising that kind of flow through us and make us feel overwhelmed. And it's really hard to process. So we often feel really drained from trying to navigate all those emotions.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other signs that someone's grieving besides the ones you mentioned?
Well, grieving is really an emotional loss. It's a response to emotions. So our feelings, right? We respond physically to our feelings. And so there can also be like physical reactions. So when we have grief or a lot of emotions, it can affect our body. It can feel like there's something on a chest or weighing us down. We can get upset stomachs, like stomach aches are one thing about people grieving with loss. Or just those physical signs are also things that when you're really emotional, you feel.
Does grief have an impact on your brain and cognitive function?
I've been thinking about this question a lot. And when we have a trauma or a significant event in our life, our brain actually shuts off and goes into survival mode. And so, and you've probably heard flight, fight, or freeze. So again, when we have grief, we have this experience and our emotions get overwhelming and we often go into that survival mode. And so when we're in grief, we're in the survival mode and we get triggered lots. It's like the grief is in our short-term memory. And so we get triggered lots and we go back into those spots or that survival mode. But when we process grief, when we work through grief, it actually moves that grief or those feelings into our long-term memory. And when they're in our long-term memory, then we think about them and it doesn't overwhelm us anymore. We can actually use the front part of our brain because we're not going into survival mode. And then we can think about things and remember things maybe more, not on that emotional survival mode. So I guess the advantage is, right, grief makes us react emotionally to things.
What are some healthy ways to deal with grief or to process grief?
First healthy way is just to feel it. Our first reaction, and sometimes this is because of what we've been culturally taught, what we have been learned as kids, is not to feel sad. And so our first reaction is trying to hide those feelings or numb those feelings or to get distracted. So the first healthy way you can deal with grief is just feel it and be okay with that feeling. Allow yourself to grieve. Lots of times when I talk to people or people are sharing about different events in their life, they don't realize it's grief. They're just telling me about things. And when I can say, yeah, you know what, that sounds like grief, they're like, oh, and then they allow themselves to have those feelings, to have those sad feelings, to be able to acknowledge those conflicting feelings. So the first thing is to feel okay, or feel it and be okay. And the second thing is we need to share our loss with somebody who will listen. And we call it listening with heart, with ears, so with no judgment or fixing. So we need those people in our lives that we can talk to who won't give us their story or try to make us feel better, but that will just sit with us and listen to us and let us be heard. We need to grieve in community. We need each other so we can grieve healthily. And I think the last one is to learn action steps to move through grief. We can often get stuck in the emotions, but we aren't actually taking any action to move forward. So there's action steps you can take to move forward in grief so that you're dealing with it in a healthy way. It's not a bad thing. Grief is going to happen to us. We're going to have more than 40 losses in our lives. We're all going to have to work through grief. So let's learn how to do it properly and not try to be strong or push down our feelings or do the other things that we learn as kids and from our culture.
What happens when you don't deal with your grief?
That's a good question. If you think about it, you probably know people who have not dealt with their grief. When we don't deal with our grief, it's like we have all this emotional energy and it's stored in our body. And when we don't deal with grief, it affects our physical health. So it affects, we're anxious, we're stressed, so it affects that. When we don't deal with grief, we often keep processing things and get stuck in processing things. So we can keep telling our story over and over and over and never go anywhere with it. And so maybe you know people who they're stuck in telling their story and they can't get past it. The other thing is that we all have those things. When we don't deal with grief, we keep saying things about what we wish we would have done, what we could have done. And, it's like, if I had done this, things would have been different. And so unresolved grief, or when we don't deal with grief, we get stuck in the things that we wish would have happened. And we get stuck. We keep thinking and thinking and thinking, if only we had done this, if only we had done that. So that's a huge, big sign in what happens when we don't resolve our grief.
What stops you from working through losses?
What stops us from working through losses?
Yeah.
A lot of times it's our belief system about losses. So we all have belief systems that we learn, even when we're young, we learn belief systems about how to deal with losses. So when a good example is if you're little, let's say a little girl comes home and she's sad because her friends were mean to her that day. And she comes home and she wants to tell her parents that her kids the kids were being mean to her. And often our response is, don't feel sad about that, right? Here's a cookie. Well, let's do something so we don't feel sad. But what we learn is that we shouldn't feel sad, right? And that we want to please our parents, so we don't want to tell them our sad feelings anymore. That keeps impacting us throughout our life. And then we don't want to talk about things. We don't want to be sad. Often we don't want to grieve in front of other people. We've learned, right, that if you want to cry, go to your room and cry. And so we learn that we need to not feel sad, that we need to grieve alone. We often learn to replace the loss. When a pet dies, what's the first thing we do? We go buy another pet for our kids without letting them grieve that relationship. And then they learn we just have to go replace what was lost. And so those beliefs that we have often keep us from actually dealing with our grief. Instead of dealing with our grief, we do coping things or things that will distract us from our actual feelings and not doing the work.
So how does working through losses benefit us?
It's like a story. It's like a backpack. So we often tell the story about when we're a baby or when we're young. Let's imagine we're given an empty backpack. So when we're a baby, we're given this empty backpack. As we start through life, we have losses, right? We start kids. We take away their blankets. They lose their scissors. They have a sibling born. They're not the center of attention anymore. They have all these losses a pet dies, grandma, grandpa dies. And so they have these losses, and it's like rocks, and our losses are like rocks, and we put them in our backpacks. And because we don't know how to deal with them, they stay in our backpack. And as we get older, we keep putting more rocks in our backpacks. Then we become adults and we have more losses. And so we keep putting those losses in the backpack, and it weighs us down. Sometimes we call it baggage. It weighs us down, whether it's losses from relationships. We go through like our first loss, love loss. We go through our first job loss. Maybe something happens. We keep putting those in our backpack. And soon we're kind of carrying around a heavy load. And by the time we're 50, we can be carrying a pretty heavy load of losses. And what happens is then all of a sudden something happens, and it's like one more loss happens, and we fall apart. And it might not even be the biggest loss in our life, but we fall apart because it's that last rock that we can't carry anymore. And that's when we break down, we get overwhelmed, and we have to find a new way of coping. When we learn the new tools for coping, we start taking those rocks out of our backpack. And instead of putting them back in, like some people bring out their losses, they talk about them, they put them back in. But if we can process our losses, we can start unloading our backpacks. And when we unload our backpacks, we can start living. We're lighter, and we can start living in the present instead of being weighed down by our past. And when we can live in the present, our lives are much happier. We can do the things God's called us to do because we're not carrying around this heavy backpack.
Mm-hmm. You know, it makes me think of that. Do you know that animated movie? I want to say Inside Out, but I'm not sure that's the title. Do you know the animated movie, children's movie?
The one with all the emotions?
Yeah.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah,
Yes.
and
Yes.
she was sad about some, but all the other parts of her weren't allowing her to ever be sad and grieve.
That is exactly.
Yeah. All we're talking about just made me think of that movie.
Yeah, I love that one.
A perfect illustration.
Mhm.
So how can you know if you're grieving for too long? Or is there such a thing?
You know, this is one of those myths. And one of the myths that we kind of have is that if we just wait long enough, time will heal all wounds. So that's one myth. So there's this idea that we just have to wait. But if we wait long enough, but we never know how long enough is, that time will heal wounds. And we know that doesn't happen. So I don't think there's any set time that we have to grieve, because we all grieve a unique relationship. Sometimes if you've had a deep relationship with someone, you'll grieve longer than if you had a different, like a lighter relationship with someone. But I think the better question is, are you stuck? If you're stuck, which means that you're going over and over that losses, you're repeating your story, you're not able to move forward, then there's something you need to do. But if you're going along, I don't think there is any set time. We love our loved ones, and we're always going to remember them. But if we're stuck, then we need to look at ways we can move on from that.
Okay, so does the Bible have any advice for those who grieve?
I was just reading this story, and I pulled up one verse from the Psalms, and I realized the Psalms are amazing for talking about grief. David was an amazing, he went through so much stuff, and he just models what we need to do with grief. We need to express our feelings. We need to acknowledge them. He would be mad. He would be like, telling God to kill people at one moment, and the next moment he's like, God's great, and I have hope. And so he really showed, if you want an example, you can see the conflicting feelings he was feeling through his grief. And he really models how we can go through grief. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those crushed in spirit. God has such a heart for grievers. He knows we're going to go through losses, right? The Bible says we're going to suffer. We're going to go through losses, but he is there with us. Jesus has experienced losses. So I think it's very biblical that we go through losses, we feel our feelings, and then we let God heal those parts that need to be healed.
Is there a type of person that it's more difficult for them to grieve?
Well, I think like we've been talking, if you're not good at showing your emotions, if you're not good at expressing your emotions, you're going to have a hard time grieving. If you're a person who pushes everything away and doesn't deal with anything, I think you're going to have a harder time grieving. If you have a lot of losses that are not dealt with, like if you're carrying around your big or your big backpack of rocks, you're going to have a harder time, right? Because we kind of numb out and we can't take one more loss, and so we don't deal with them. So those are kind of are some of the things. And also it totally depends on your relationship with the person, right? How well you'll go through loss. And sometimes we call it closure, but part of loss that helps us move forward is that completion. So completion means we've said the things we needed to say. We've asked for forgiveness, or we've apologized. We've asked for forgiveness. We've said that those emotional statements that we want to say, we love you, we miss you. So when we can complete those things and the person has heard us, so sometimes there's great things when somebody has a prolonged illness and we know they're going to pass away. So we fix those relationships, we reconcile those relationships, and we say the things that we want to say. Then often that helps us deal with grief better. If we have an estranged relationship, if there's lots of things said that or weren't said, or things that happen and we haven't dealt with them, it'll be harder to grieve that relationship.
Darlene, could you share with our listeners some life events that they may need to grieve and be unaware of?
There, like I said, there's over 40 losses. So often we don't think of them as losses. Things that we share or that happen to us. Again, the big one, death, of course, is one, but another big one is relationships. So loss of relationships. So if you've had a divorce, if you've had some relationship, if your spouse has passed away, even if you have a estranged relationship with or let's say you lose a friend, all those are times when we'll grieve. Other things we think of are jobs. When we lose a job, there's grief. When we lose our health, as we get older, we lose our health, or if we've been diagnosed with something, it's a huge grieving process. My husband got diagnosed with Parkinson's. That's a huge loss right? We have to grieve that loss because it changes not only what's happening now, but our future. We have to grieve those losses. So we also grieve what we're going to miss, or what we had planned and is not going to happen. So if you've had a life where you were wanted, right, when you want kids, you want this family, and all of a sudden your life is not turned out as you wanted it to be, that's a huge loss. The loss of our dreams and expectations are huge, and those are things we need to grieve.
Yeah. So what are some action steps that a person can take in order to grieve well?
So the first step I have is find community, have somebody that you can share with and share your story. So the first healthy thing you can do is share your story, experience your losses, share them with somebody, and find that person that will listen to you and will be there for you. The second thing is to learn tools, again, that will teach you to move forward, teach you how to work and process through your grief, not get stuck in it. And I think the last thing is to find meaning in loss. A lot of times, if we can find a reason for our loss and find meaning in that, whether it's even just helping other people through the same loss, we'll do better. We can grieve well when we find purpose in this. And this is, again, biblical. God, right? Jesus suffered with a purpose to save us all, right? So he had a purpose. So when we can find a purpose for suffering, we can grieve well. We can work through things, and we just do better if we find meaning in our losses.
So our audience are single Christian women over 50. Is there anything specific you'd like to share with them about grieving?
I think do the work. Because as women, and I was thinking about this too as a question, you can have such an impact on the people around you when we deal with our losses. And maybe just share. I had two aunts when I was growing up. I had two aunts who were probably they were in their 50s when we were born, when I was born, and they were just such big good mentors to me. And they taught me so much about life. They taught me about manners. They taught me right about washing dishes and the importance of that. They played games with us, and they took us on trips and adventures. And so I would say, if you're 50 single and a woman, you have God has a plan and purpose for your life. And you won't, and if you grieve, if you actually do the work of grieving and working through those, you will be able to live the life God's called you to live. And I think what stops us sometimes is that heavy backpack that we feel tied down, and it brings us down. But when we can grieve, you have your best life still ahead of you. So just encourage you to do the work, live your life, because you have a special purpose and a meaning, and you can touch not only your life and the people around you, but you can touch the next generation.
Okay, so we're coming toward the end here, and you and I share a love of horses. And so I was just wondering if you could tell our audience a little bit about your EAL program and how that ties in with helping those who are suffering with grief.
Yeah, wow. Horses are some of my favorite subjects. So equine assisted learning is actually partnering people with horses. And horses, I love that, just this quote: horses have an amazing ability to reach deep inside a human and touch on parts of their life that need attention. Just connecting with a horse can help somebody realize where their changes need to be made, where healing needs to take place, where life resolutions need to happen. And so I like horses are this communication, this relationship you have in which the horses teach humans where they need to change. And so I love horses because when it comes to grief, just getting in touch with our emotions it can be a challenge. And horses actually have this amazing ability to mirror our emotions, to help us see what we're feeling outside ourselves without, even when we don't really know what's going on inside. So horses can help us grieve, or help us know our emotions and grieve. And they have the amazing ability just to comfort us, to wrap our arms, or they actually, people don't usually believe me, but horses can hug you. They can wrap around you, and they can just be that presence there. And they just reflect. I think they reflect God's heart towards us. The horse will listen to you. It can be trusted. People, there's this big animal weighing like 1,000 pounds, and these little people can lead it around with just the lightest touch. And so I think horses just create trust in us and help renew that trust, and they help renew the Father's heart. So I love when grieving people come out and they can get in touch with their feelings, they can connect, they can trust again, and they can just work through some of the things in their lives.
Okay. So here's a moment to put in your pitch. What is up and coming for your EAL program?
Hey, well, I wish whoever was listening, we could all come to Dutchess, Alberta, and experience horses. But I know I know there's other places around. So find some place where they have EAL if you're not in our area. In our area, we are starting April, or actually May. We are going to start at our outdoor arena, and so we're going to start having horse club where you can come and just have a drop-in fee. Just come meet the horses. We're gonna have sessions available. We're gonna have some programming coming up. We have an amazing program called Trails from the Heart, which is again usually for women, but it's how to work through, right? How to find out what your purpose is in life, and how to work through your emotional stuff so that you can find that purpose and have a new purpose in life. So there's lots of exciting programs coming up with the EAL.
Okay, yeah, just to mention that Dutchess is in Brooks, Alberta, Canada. And so some of our audience may not be able to make it there, but as she says, there may be an EAL program next to you and or near you, and you may want to check into that. Darlene, just a last thing here before we go. Could you share your website and social media information?
Yeah, and so we do have online resources too for grief. So we have our website is stronger-lifeconnections.com. And our social media, if you look up Stronger Life Connections, we have a social media page. So come and check us out. We have online resources and courses that you can have. So we do groups. We are actually promoting nurturing children through loss. So again, I think our heart is if we can help children learn how to grieve, we're changing that generation. And so we really encourage people to not only, to look at, that's the purpose. Sometimes the meaning in our loss is that we can help other generations. So we have a program called, or a webinar called Nurturing Children Through Loss, and a program helping children with grief. It's an online program that anyone can access and come and join us. So please check out that resource, that course. We also do online one-on-one grief recovery methods. So we have lots of resources. We have a book, When Flowers Aren't Enough, as you can see in our background, that you can purchase. I think it's on Amazon now. So it's a really good reflective book with our story, and with my friend who works with me, her story, Jen Tom. She has an amazing story. So yeah, check us out.
Okay, well, thank you for all the information that you shared with us today, Darlene. You're just a wonderful guest to have on the podcast today, and to just say thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, and keep on helping and encouraging women and to be the best that they can be. It's so good.
Thank you.
We'll do that. Thank you.
Join the JPS Community Facebook group. Please share any thoughts that resonated with you from today's podcast episode in our private Facebook community. Start reaching out to other single women and create your local group of Jesus People Sisters. And please let us know about your group for our directory of Jesus People Sisterhood groups. Contact us at support@JesusPeopleSisterhood.com.
Have you had a good experience with a business? They treated you honestly and helped you at a reasonable price? Please let us know. We would like to start a directory of JPS-friendly businesses. Let's care for one another.
That's all we have for today, sisters. Be blessed by Him who was able to protect you from stumbling and to make you stand in the presence of His glory, blameless and with great joy. Bye for now.
Hey, sister, before you go, thank you for listening. If you found value in today's podcast, the best way to say thank you is by leaving a 5-star written review at Apple Podcasts. That raises us in the rankings and helps other sisters find us too. And please tell a friend or post it on your social media. If you're a single Christian woman over 50, this podcast was created specifically for you. The Jesus People Sisterhood is your community to find support and friendship with other sisters who can understand. Be sure to follow us on your podcast app and join our free private Facebook group at Jesus People Sisterhood Community.
Jesus People Sisterhood has also started a private Facebook group for housing and co-living opportunities. You can check that out at Jesus People Sisterhood Senior Housing. You can also find us on Facebook at Jesus People Sisterhood, and individually for Janine at riseupcoachingandconsulting.com and for Ellie at samaramountain.com. And ladies, this is the necessary disclaimer. Our podcast content is for informational purposes and does not constitute professional advice for mental health, medical, legal, financial, or other areas. The opinions of the guest do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the hosts. It is our heart that this podcast will be a blessing to you. Together, let's build a powerful sisterhood with Jesus. Make a friend, add a sister, across the border and around the world.